I invite you to turn in your Chumashim, if you still have access, to page 375. It appears that the plagues are getting to Pharaoh. Some of his advisors are turning on him. And we read in verse 7 on page 375 that Pharaoh's courtiers asks, "How long shall this one be a snare to us? Let the men go to worship the Lord their God already. Are you not aware that Egypt is lost?" It sounds like a couple recent Senate floor speeches, but I don't really want to go there. Because Pharaoh is ready to negotiate. He calls Moses and Aaron back to the palace, and he says in verse 8, "Go and worship the Lord your God." He just has one question. Mi vami haholchim. Who are the ones to go? Moses replies, Bin arenu uvizkenenu nelech. We will all go, our young and our old. We will go with our sons and our daughters, our flocks and herds, for we must observe the Lord's festival. But Pharaoh tries to negotiate. He says to them, and I'm translating a little bit differently, "May Adonai be with you when I send you and your children, but see, re'u, there is evil before you." We'll come back to that phrase. "No, you menfolk go and worship the Lord, since that is what you want." And he expelled them from Pharaoh's presence. So first, the evil before you. Our translation sees those words as a recognition on Pharaoh's part that Moses and Aaron don't just want to go out to offer sacrifices for a few days, they want to escape. And Pharaoh wants to keep the children back in order to ensure their return. But there's a different interpretation brought by the Netziv, Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, in his 19th century commentary, Ha'amek Davar, in which he says that Pharaoh was just offering advice, leader to leader. "I'll send you out to the wilderness as you request," Pharaoh says, "but you don't want to bring the children. They can't participate in the ritual, and they're just going to get in the way. Why don't you leave them here, and we can watch them for you and keep them safe until you return?" That's a philosophy that many of us understand. Children in the sanctuary, they say, are like good decisions. They should be carried out. We need junior congregation and youth services and babysitting because children in here would be disruptive. I know people agree with that sentiment, but it's telling that Pharaoh is the one who suggested it. I'm a big fan of junior congregation and Torah tots and family services, but because of us, not because of them. We don't always do enough to stimulate kids, so we create opportunities to involve them more proactively, but not because we can't have them in here. Children who want to be in the sanctuary are welcome, and if they make a little noise, sometimes we have to sing a little louder. I think that's where the preponderance of the community lies. Public service announcement next week is Teen Shabbat, and we will welcome and celebrate the skills and enthusiasm and participation of our more youthful members. Rabbi Kushner, at the bottom of the page, suggests no celebration is complete without children. He cites the early 20th century sage Rav Yosef Kahanenman, who says, "Yeled yatom keshe'en lo horim." An orphan child is a person without parents. Am yatom keshe'en lo banim. But an orphan people is one without children. An early Hasidic master, Rav Moshe Teitelbaum, cites the Talmudic suggestion that Jerusalem was destroyed because schools stopped educating children, and redemption will come on account of our ability and commitment to train children in the mores and rituals and texts of Jewish life. We know how important children are to the Passover Seder. Mi vami haholchim. Children are an indispensable part of our mission. A Talmudic passage looks at the mitzvah called hakel. Every 7 years, the Torah mandates hakel et ha'am, gather the people, men, women, and children, anashim, nashim, vataf, and the strangers in your community, that they may hear and so learn to revere God and observe faithfully every word of the Torah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah asks, if the men come to study And the women come to hear. In their world, women did not study Torah as men did. Why do the children come? And he answers, Kedei litain schar limiviehem, in order to give reward to those who bring them. Children, even children who are not old enough or skilled enough to participate, are integral. We earn reward for training them and including them. And not just so they will be like us. We earn reward through the generational changes that inevitably come. The next generation always adds its voice and brings us along and moves us forward. Sometimes it makes us uncomfortable because we're not ready. But that's our reward for training children in the first place. And Moses understood that, while Pharaoh, maybe not. For me, the most inspiring part of the inauguration this week was Amanda Gorman, the 22-year-old dubbed the youngest inaugural poet in U.S. history. Her poem, The Hill We Climb, described hope as a reminder that America is perpetually unfinished. The Constitution's call for a more perfect union is an aspiration, not a description. Or as Gorman put it, we've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always justice. And yet, the dawn is ours before we knew it. That's the promise of the next generation. And it isn't just children. The story of American Judaism over the past 100 years is one of inclusion and expansion to answer Pharaoh's question, Mi vami haholchim, who are the ones who travel with us? Take women. It's hard to believe it is still less than 100 years since Judith Kaplan became the first bat mitzvah in 1922. Last week, Peggy Pearlstein celebrated the 65th anniversary of her bat mitzvah, and I mused about what bat mitzvah even looked like 65 years ago. It was a Friday night. She read a few verses of the Haftarah. Not all the girls did it. I'm sure it was very nice, but a far cry from today when every girl celebrates the same way the boys do. A couple years ago, I had to rethink the comparative Judaism class I was teaching 7th graders because when we got to the session on women, and I was explaining positive time-bound commandments and the movement's different approaches to women leading prayer or counting in a minyan, one of the kids stopped me and said, "You mean there was a time when women didn't do those things?" Okay, they should study more history. There was also a time when women couldn't vote. But the point is that the next generation takes egalitarianism for granted. Of course women are included, and not just included. Women are presidents and rabbis and leaders who make decisions that shape the community. And we didn't stop there. It's almost 15 years since the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards ruled in favor of same-sex marriage. At that time, it seemed like a landmark decision, decades too late for some and a big departure from the tradition for others. But now, of course, we accept same-sex marriage, and we can't stop there because we know that there are more affirmative things we can do, not just to include or accept or invite LGBTQ, but to undo lingering discriminations and prejudices that still make people feel unwelcome. Mi vami haholchim is not a quick question to answer and move on. It's a mindset that says our community is constantly, perpetually expanding. Next month is Jewish Disability Awareness and Inclusion Month, and it's the same thing. Inclusion is not just a building project. Ramps and audio loops are great, but inclusion is a mindset that stops asking, what do we need to do to get those people to just be happy? Because the work is never done. Or non-Jews. There are things that Jews do that individuals who are not Jewish cannot do. Covenant means something. Halakha means something. We understand that. But over the past 20 years or more, we've also come to understand that non-Jews are an integral part of our community. They're part of our families. They celebrate with us, join us, not just passively, they contribute. part of the fabric that defines who we are and what our destiny looks like. They have joined us in this journey in ways that Moses and his generation may not have imagined. I think the next step will be doing more to welcome and include Jews of color. We know the percentage of Jews of color in our area is significantly higher than the percentage of such Jews on our membership rolls. Anecdotal evidence suggests that there are too many times when Jews of color enter synagogue buildings and are made to feel like they don't belong. We know we are a welcoming congregation. We know we are friendly. And we also know we can do more to expand our understanding of who belongs here. Today is Social Action Shabbat. We know what that committee does to expand the meaning of community beyond our walls. But it's not just outside, and it's not a new question. Mi vami haholchim, who is to join us in community? We know what Pharaoh thought. We know how Moses answered, and we can be sure that even generations from now, our group will continue to expand. Shabbat Shalom.